Several Democratic candidates hoping to be New York City's next mayor took part in a debate Thursday night. For the first time, the top 5 leading candidates were invited to debate. Hosted by CBS New York, this was the last televised debate before early voting starts on Saturday ahead of the primary on June 22nd. Let's start off by taking a look at some of the highlights from the night.
He spent months attacking me for not being a New Yorker. Meanwhile, he was attacking me from New Jersey.
This is a moment where New York City is facing an existential crisis.
The mayor's job is safety. Safety is job one, and I'm going to keep New Yorkers safe when I'm mayor.
We've got to invest in helping our kids stay away from the criminal justice and the prisons, and the way to do that is invest in kids.
And I'm going to sit down and work a relationship with the governor and say, we're Team New York.
For more, Adam Brewster joins me from New York City. Adam covers special elections and midterms for CBS News. So, Adam, what did the candidates focus on in Thursday night's debate?
Well, of course, we heard a lot of discussions about crime and policing. That has been the central issue in the race, especially within the last couple of months, the last month and a half, really, as the COVID-19 pandemic has started to recede a bit within New York City. We also heard questions about a Politico story from earlier this week that sort of raised some questions about where Eric Adams, the Brooklyn Borough president, one of the leading candidates in the race, where he lives. There were also discussions about the relationship between the mayor and the governor, questions about regulations for legalized marijuana. They touched on some topics, the moderators tonight, that we hadn't heard necessarily a lot from or a lot about in the previous debates, and as well as some of the issues, questions for the candidates themselves about various controversies they've been involved in. But it really covered a lot of ground tonight. But still, we've seen voters say that crime and policing are their #1 issues. That is where the bulk of the time was focused tonight.
And new polling from Emerson College and local station Pix 11 shows that Brooklyn Borough President Eric Adams has extended his lead on the first round of voting. Earlier this week, Adams said he would not attend the debate, but he reversed course and ended up participating. What was behind that change of plans?
Well, he was supposed to attend. He said when he wasn't going to go to the debate that he was going to be at a vigil tonight for a family of a 10-year-old boy who was killed in a shooting recently in Queens. And he said that he didn't want to politicize that. Some of his opponents have been attacking him and saying, this is, you should be here to answer questions, especially in light of that recent Politico story that I know we're going to talk about. And he said, look, he didn't want to be a distraction at that vigil tonight, so he decided it was best to go to the debate.
Well, as we saw, Eric Adams was really under the firing line from some of his other fellow competitors. His Easy Pass records were released on Thursday, just days after he was questioned whether or not he actually lives in New York City. Let's play what he said during the debate.
I live in Brooklyn. I live in Bedford-Stuyvesant. I am happy to be there. It's a beautiful community. That's where I live. It's a humble place, but it's a blue-collar place. I'm a blue-collar candidate. I live in Brooklyn, New York. I'm proud of that. I served.
Adam, what kind of attacks did Adams face from his opponents on the stage?
Some of the questions, raised were just about questions of honesty. Saying, it should be a simple answer to where do you live and where do you spend your time, where do you go to sleep at night. The Politico story questioned how much time he's spending in New Jersey, where his partner lives, and if he's spending late nights and still sleeping at Borough Hall, something he was doing during the pandemic. Earlier today, he said, opponents are basically criticizing him for working hard and spending late nights at Borough Hall. But we heard, Kathryn Garcia, the sanitation commissioner, who has, really seen her stock rise in this race. She's a serious contender, among the moderates. Say, this is sort of a Where's Waldo moment. We heard Maya Wiley, the civil rights attorney, question, where do you live? This should be an easy question. And of course, Andrew Yang, he and Adams have been 2 of the top candidates throughout this time. They've really sparred with each other a lot. And Adams has frequently criticized Yang for spending time in his home in upstate New York during the pandemic. And Yang took the opportunity to say, you've hit me for this, and now it appears that you spent some time in New Jersey and not where you said you've been, again, getting to sort of the honesty question underlying that issue there.
Well, you mentioned Maya Wiley. She's really been gaining steam recently. Many progressives have switched their endorsements away from Scott Stringer recently. And Wiley just secured Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez's endorsement. What moments from Wiley stood out to you from this debate?
All right, the left has sort of rallied around Maya Wiley, especially within the last week, with Representatives Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and Jamal Bowman, and then also New York City's public advocate Jumaane Williams, another big figure in New York City politics within the progressive wing of the Democratic Party. And, you know, that sort of happened in the wake of some allegations of sexual misconduct against Scott Stringer, which he answered again tonight saying, you know, that he doesn't remember it, denied those allegations, saying these are from 20, 30 years ago. But as for Wiley, you know, one of her central platforms is taking $1 billion out of the New York Police Department's budget and spending it elsewhere. And she's faced questions from Eric Adams, from Andrew Yang, from Kathryn Garcia about whether that's the right decision at a time when murders are up and shootings are up within New York City. And she said tonight at the top on the first crime question, safety is the #1 priority of the mayor. I'm going to ensure the safety of New Yorkers. You know, putting it out there saying that is something that I care about. That is something I am really going to prioritize. She got that message out there while saying that this can be done differently. And that's what I've heard from communities that I've been to. So those were some of the, you know, questions that, you know, people may have about her is, you know, how she's going to balance some of these funding issues with safety, depending on how they see that. And she made it clear that she doesn't believe more police is the solution.
And Adam, early voting is set to begin this weekend and lasts until June 20th, but it's ranked choice voting. Might that favor a candidate like Andrew Yang, who has greater name recognition? And when might we see a winner?
Well, how the ranked choice voting plays out is going to be fascinating. When you talk to, you know, pollsters and people who work on the campaigns, they say the coalitions that voters build on their ballots are not necessarily what politicos or people in the media might expect. It's not all the progressives or all the moderates that they necessarily rate together. So I think it's going to be really interesting because, you know, on primary night, June 22nd, we'll get an idea of everyone who voted early in person or on election day, who their first choice was. And then the waiting begins, right? We're probably not going to know who wins this race until the second week of July, perhaps mid-July. That's because absentee ballots in New York can arrive up until a week after Election Day. Then there's some time still for voters to fix potential issues, you know, if they have to fix a signature that's in question, if they forgot to sign somewhere, little issues like that can be fixed on a ballot. And so it could take, there's going to be different rounds that are released. So we'll kind of see this process go through, and they'll be doing ranked choice tabulations as more votes come in. But it may be until the week of July 12th before we get a winner. And, you know, advocates for ranked choice voting point out, in the old system, before ranked choice voting, a candidate had to hit 40% to avoid a runoff election. And in a race where you have, you know, 13 candidates on the ballot, 8 who have qualified for most of the debates, no one is going to hit 40%, you know, barring something shocking. So you would already have this extra waiting period with an extra runoff election that's lower turnout. And that's sort of been the argument that people made for ranked choice voting, is that it gets everyone involved in one election, saves the city money, and ensures that a more representative electorate is involved in the decision making. But as for who ranked choice benefits, that will probably be one of the most interesting things to see throughout this. Will the person who's in first place with first place votes go on to be the winner? Will someone catch up because they've built a bigger coalition? I think that that will be a fascinating experiment to watch unfold.
And we know you'll be watching it all. Adam, thank you.
Thanks, Lana.